A biblical story is getting new life thanks to new evidence of Noah's Ark.
More modern scans of the area have shown that the mountainside does contain a
Hidden beneath the ice and stone of Turkey's Mount Ararat, something long forgotten may be awakening. What explorers claim to have uncovered goes far beyond ancient timber or religious legend. Deep inside the mountain are reports of sealed chambers, colossal structures, unidentifiable symbols, and objects that behave in ways science struggles to explain. This is not just a story about the past. It may be a warning written into the earth itself. Could this be the Ark described in Genesis, or a sign meant for the last days, just as Jesus foretold? Stay with me until the end, because what unfolds next is not meant to entertain, but to confront. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe, and help spread a message many are not ready to hear, but must. High above the harsh terrain of eastern Turkey, where snow and stone dominate the slopes of Mount Ararat, a question has lingered for generations. According to the book of Genesis, a flood of unimaginable scale once covered the earth, leaving only Noah, his family, and the creatures aboard a great ark alive. When the waters withdrew, Scripture records that the ark rested upon the mountains of Ararat, Genesis 8-4. From that moment, Ararat became more than a mountain. It became a symbol of judgment, survival, and divine intervention. But was this account purely spiritual, or does the mountain still guard physical traces of that event? For centuries, explorers have been drawn to these peaks. Travelers in the 1800s reported seeing dark, beam-like shapes trapped in ice. In the late 20th century, attention intensified when a boat-shaped formation near Ararat, later called the Durupinar site, entered global discussion. Its outline, visible from the air, immediately raised eyebrows. Turkish authorities, acknowledging both its cultural weight and public fascination, designated the area a national park in 1987. What followed was an influx of researchers, journalists, pilgrims, and skeptics, all searching for answers buried beneath legend. What continues to unsettle investigators is not tradition alone, but measurable anomaly. Aerial imaging shows a symmetrical structure stretching roughly 538 feet, a dimension strikingly close to the biblical description of the Ark. Soil taken from inside the formation contains significantly higher organic content than surrounding ground, as though something large and biological once decayed there. Subsurface scans suggest internal divisions, chambers, and layered zones that do not resemble typical geological formations shaped by erosion or mudflow. These findings have fueled a persistent divide. Many geologists maintain that the Durupinar Formation is a natural product of tectonic activity and sediment displacement. Others argue that the convergence of shape, chemistry, and internal structure is too precise to dismiss outright. To believers, the site represents preserved testimony evidence intentionally left for a generation living on the edge of fulfillment. To skeptics, it is coincidence amplified by expectation. Between these positions, the debate remains unresolved, yet the significance of Mount Ararat extends beyond science. Jesus himself drew attention to the days of Noah, warning in Matthew 24-37, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." In this light, Ararat becomes more than a research site. It becomes a mirror. Just as the ancient world ignored warnings until the flood arrived, modern humanity may be overlooking signs written into both scripture and stone. The mountain still stands in silence, asking a question that echoes through time. Will we recognize the warning before it is too late? When early expeditions pushed deeper into the frozen slopes of Mount Ararat, The atmosphere shifted from curiosity to stunned silence. Beneath compacted ice and layers of volcanic rock, explorers encountered something no one was prepared to explain: enormous wooden beams embedded into the mountain itself. These were not scattered debris or broken fragments. They were massive timbers, longer than a bus, positioned with deliberate alignment, as if placed rather than deposited. The scale alone raised alarm. No known tree species native to the region could account for wood of this size. Further analysis deepened the mystery. The surface of the beams was coated with a dark, hardened substance that had acted as a natural preservative. Laboratory tests showed it resisted decay, shielding the wood from moisture and bacteria for thousands of years. To many observers, the resemblance was unmistakable. Genesis 6:14 records God's instruction to Noah to seal the ark inside and out with pitch. That pitch was not merely practical, it was symbolic, a covering from judgment. The resin encasing these beams appeared to echo that ancient command in physical form. As excavation progressed, a collapsed section exposed what lay pressed into the wooden flooring. The impressions were not random fractures. They were distinct, hoof-like shapes, claw marks, deep scratches hardened into fossilized form. Scientists debated whether these patterns could be natural, but others saw something more chilling: traces left by living creatures confined within narrow spaces. Alongside the impressions, fragments of woven plant fibers were recovered, along with bones that did not belong to any animal native to Turkey. Some remains pointed to species from far-off regions. A jawbone closely resembled that of an African antelope. Pigmented feathers matched bird species found in Asia. The geographic contradiction was impossible to ignore. Such remains could not arrive here by chance, unless, as ancient texts describe, they had been transported together aboard a single vessel. Scattered throughout hidden cavities were broken clay jars, darkened by age. Several still carried traces of bitumen, the same substance referenced in early flood accounts. The scene felt less like a random geological formation and more like a vessel frozen in time, sealed before its story could be erased. Yet these discoveries carried an unsettling weight. The Ark was not only a refuge, it was a line of separation. Life inside, judgment outside. Jesus warned that his return would mirror the days of Noah's ordinary life, continuing, unaware, until destruction came suddenly. These beams, impressions, and remains do not merely suggest survival. They whisper warning. Skeptics argue coincidence, erosion, illusion, but how many fragments must align before coincidence collapses under its own weight? The mountain holds its silence, but its evidence speaks. And as researchers prepare to enter deeper sealed chambers, one question lingers. What else has been waiting in the dark all this time? Stay with us. The next discovery raises even more disturbing questions. As excavation advanced deeper into Mount Ararat, it became clear that what lay beneath was far more than a collapsed structure of ancient wood. Subsurface scans began revealing a concealed interior unlike anything expected. Ground-penetrating radar traced a complex network hidden within the mountain's symmetrical corridors, sharply defined right angles, and layered voids arranged in a manner strikingly similar to decks within a massive vessel. These were not the chaotic signatures of erosion or mudflow. They reflected order, planning, and intentional design. One chamber, however, defied all others. Larger than the rest and encased within unusually dense volcanic stone, it resisted every attempt at penetration. Radar signals fractured and scattered, returning only partial silhouettes and unstable readings. The effect was unmistakable. This space had not merely survived time, it appeared deliberately sealed, as though someone had intended it to remain untouched. When a smaller adjoining compartment was eventually accessed, the findings became even more unsettling. Dark streaks of bitumen clung to the inner surfaces, identical in composition to ancient waterproofing materials described in early flood accounts. Embedded within the debris were remnants of woven reeds and fractured clay vessels, their interiors stained by age. Among these remains, researchers uncovered something entirely unexpected: fragments of parchment so fragile they disintegrated upon exposure. Before vanishing, however, high-resolution imaging captured fleeting traces of ink. The markings resembled early Semitic script. Words emerged briefly before dissolving: survival, covenant, renewal. These were not symbols of myth, but echoes of testimony. The fragments suggested that the vessel was more than a refuge. It functioned as a witness, a preserved memory of catastrophe and promise alike. The inscriptions implied that the flood was remembered not only as destruction, but as covenant, a divine assurance that judgment by water would not return, even as accountability remained. Further anomalies lay beneath the chamber floor. Copper-lined cylinders were discovered, initially assumed to be storage containers. Metallurgical analysis told a different story. The alloy composition included rare mineral combinations inconsistent with known ancient metallurgy. Elements associated with modern high-strength applications appeared present in trace but deliberate proportions. Whether this reflected lost knowledge or extraordinary provision, it challenged established timelines. As researchers examined the beams more closely, hidden markings began to emerge under ultraviolet light. Geometric symbols, spirals, intersecting arcs, star-like forms glowed faintly against the ancient wood. Astronomers later noted that several patterns aligned with stellar configurations that no longer match the modern sky, suggesting a record of the heavens from a far earlier age. The parallels to Scripture are difficult to dismiss. Genesis speaks of a covenant sealed after judgment, symbolized by the rainbow. Yet here, sealed deep within the structure, were other forms of record materials, resisting decay, words recalling promise, symbols mapping a pre-flood world. These chambers suggest the Ark was not merely a vessel of survival, but a vault preserving memory, knowledge, and warning. Humanity had been judged once. It had been spared once, and the evidence implies it was never meant to forget. The deeper the excavation progressed, the clearer one truth became. The Ark was never intended to be merely a lifeboat. It functioned as a vault of preservation. Hidden within sealed compartments, researchers uncovered containers bound in hardened resin. When opened with extreme care, their contents stunned everyone present. Inside were seeds, thousands of them: wheat, barley, legumes, and other staple crops, all in ancestral forms far purer than modern strains. Genetic analysis revealed traits that no longer exist in today's agriculture: resilience, diversity, and untouched lineage. These seeds appeared astonishingly intact, preserved as if sealed only recently. The implication was profound. The Ark had not only carried life through the flood, it had safeguarded the future of human survival itself. This discovery reframed the entire narrative. The Ark was a floating archive, a biological library designed to ensure that once the waters withdrew, the Earth could be replanted.